The wind carried the scent of sagebrush and dust as Luke Harding rode down the wagon trail toward town. His stallion's hooves thudded against the packed earth, a rhythm that echoed the steady hammer of his heart. The late summer sun blazed above, gilding the prairies in heat and shadow. Out here, silence had always been his only companion. But today, silence would finally give way to something new. A bride. Luke tugged down the brim of his hat, uneasy despite himself. He was a man comfortable with cattle, fencing, and gun smoke when needed, but the idea of meeting the woman who'd written him letters these last 6 months made his palms itch. He'd read her words by lamplight after long days, her neat script bringing warmth into his lonely house. Her name was Clara Prescott, a schoolteacher from Boston, a woman who had lost her parents and longed for a home of her own. She had sounded steady, thoughtful, tender. Luke had pictured her countless times, soft eyes, a gentle laugh, hands that knew both work and comfort. He hadn't expected perfection, only honesty and the chance for companionship. The stagecoach driver's shout broke his thoughts. Dust rose in the distance where the wagon approached, rattling toward the small depot on the edge of Cheyenne. Luke swallowed hard. This was it. When the wagon pulled to a stop, the driver hopped down and tipped his hat. "Mr. Harding? Got passengers here, fare you." Luke stepped forward, boot heels biting into the dirt. The door creaked open, and the first glimpse of his bride-to-be stole the air from his lungs. A woman stepped down gracefully, her bonnet tied beneath a delicate chin, dark hair coiled neatly beneath it. Her gray eyes flickered with nerves and hope. She was exactly as he had imagined her. But then, another woman followed. Luke blinked hard. His jaw nearly dropped. The second woman was her mirror. Same face, same dark hair, same gray eyes. But unlike the shy, soft smile of the first, this one carried herself with boldness. Her grin was wide, her chin lifted high, and there was mischief in her gaze. Luke's breath caught. I only sent for one bride." The women exchanged glances. The first, Clara, surely, smoothed her skirt nervously. "Mr. Harding, I'm Clara Prescott." The second tipped her head, laughter in her voice. "And I'm Cora, Clara's twin sister." Surprise. Luke stared, lost between confusion and disbelief. "Twins." Cora winked. "Identical, in case you hadn't noticed." Clara swatted her sister's arm, cheeks pink. "Cora, don't tease." "Mr. Harding, I'm terribly sorry for the confusion. I wrote to you, truly I did. But when I prepared to leave Boston, my sister refused to let me travel alone. She insisted on coming. I told her. You told me I'd be a nuisance," Cora interrupted, folding her arms. "And maybe I will be, but I wasn't about to let you go across the country by yourself. Besides, Boston's dull, and I'm not the marrying kind, so there's no harm done." Luke rubbed the back of his neck, glancing between them. His heart hammered with the strangeness of it. Two women, both striking, both alike as mirrored glass. Yet already he could sense how different they were. Clara was as quiet as a prayer. Cora as wild as a song. The driver clapped him on the shoulder. "I'll leave him in your care, Harding. Good luck sorting that out." With a chuckle, he climbed back onto his wagon and rattled away, leaving Luke choking in the settling dust. Silence fell. Clara shifted nervously. "Mr. Harding, I know this isn't what you expected. I only hope you'll forgive the intrusion. I truly did mean to honor our agreement." Luke found his voice at last. "Miss Prescott, Clara, I don't rightly know what to say. I wrote for one bride, not two, but I reckon I can't send you back on the next wagon either." Cora smirked. "Well, that's a relief. We'd hardly survive the ride back east without eating each other alive." Clara's eyes widened at her sister's jest, but Luke couldn't help the ghost of a smile. Already the two of them were like fire and water, opposite, yet bound by blood. And somehow, that made his choice more tangled than he'd ever imagined. The road back to Luke's ranch stretched long, but it gave him time to study them both. Clara rode side saddle, posture straight, every movement modest and careful. She spoke only when asked, her voice quiet, thoughtful. Cora, on the other hand, had no such restraint. She peppered Luke with questions, how many cattle he owned, whether he'd ever shot a bandit, if rattlesnakes really crawled into boots at night. "You must think I'm forward," she teased, "but I figure if you're marrying my sister, I ought to know what sort of cowboy you are." Luke cleared his throat, gripping the reins tighter. "I'm a working man. Nothing fancy. That's what Clara likes," Cora said with a knowing grin. "She's steady. Me? I die of boredom living out here. No offense." "Cora," Clara whispered sharply. Luke glanced between them, unsettled yet oddly entertained. Life on the ranch had been plain, orderly, predictable. But with these two, nothing seemed certain. When they reached a spread, the Harding Ranch rose before them. Rolling pastures dotted with cattle, fences stretching to the horizon, and the main house standing sturdy against the setting sun. Luke helped them down from the wagon, noticing Clara's soft thanks and Cora's bold inspection of everything around her. "You weren't lying," Cora said. "You really do have enough land to lose yourself in." Luke chuckled. "Sometimes I think I already have." That night, as the sisters settled in the spare rooms, Luke lingered on the porch, staring out across the dark plains. He'd expected a wife. Instead, he'd been given a choice he hadn't asked for. A choice between two identical faces, two voices, two hearts that couldn't be more different. And though he told himself it would be simple, that Clara was the one he had written to, the one who had promised her hand, Luke couldn't deny the way his thoughts drifted, restless, toward Cora's laughter. It was going to be a long autumn. Two sisters, one cowboy's choice. The rooster crowed before dawn, breaking the quiet of Luke Harding's ranch. The sun had not yet risen over the plains, but already Luke was awake, boots pulled on, hat in hand. He had work to do, always did, but this morning felt heavier. He wasn't only tending cattle anymore. He was tending a storm in his heart. From the kitchen window, he could see Clara, already up, carefully pouring water into the coffee pot, her movements neat and practiced. She hummed to him under her breath, a melody that softened the air. Cora, however, stumbled in a few minutes later, yawning wide, her hair escaping its braid, eyes sparkling with mischief even in the gray light. "Do ranch hands always rise before the devil's awake?" she teased, snatching an apple from a bowl. Clara frowned. "Cora, manners. We're guests here." Luke had a smile. Clara's gentleness and Cora's wildness. They clashed, but somehow they filled the house with a kind of life it had never known. For years, Luke's mornings had been nothing but silence and chores. Now, the walls echoed with two voices, two kinds of laughter, two kinds of hope. Over the following weeks, life on the ranch became a test of hearts. Clara fit naturally into the rhythm of the land. She mended shirts with careful stitches, fed the chickens, learned to churn butter. She asked questions about the ranch, her gray eyes shining with quiet admiration when Luke explained the way a herd moved or how to read the weather in the clouds. "You're a patient man, Mr. Harding," she said one evening, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Patience is the root of a strong home. Luke found himself drawn to that steadiness. She reminded him of the promise in her letters, a woman who longed for a family, who would stand by him through the endless cycles of drought and harvest. But then there was Cora. Cora was fire. She climbed fences as though she were born in the saddle, asked to ride his best stallion, and laughed when the wind whipped her bonnet off. She was reckless, daring, never content with stillness. One afternoon, she even helped him rope a stray calf, her grin wide as the rope snapped taut. "You needn't look so shocked, cowboy," she said, wiping dust from her cheek. "I might not be wife material, but I'm not made of porcelain either." Luke's chest tightened with something he didn't want to name. Cora was trouble, pure and simple, but her laughter echoed in his bones long after the sound had faded. The turning point came when the Harding herd broke loose during a sudden storm. The sky blackened with rolling thunder, and rain slashed across the land. Cattle bawled in panic, surging toward the broken fence line. Luke cursed under his breath, saddling his horse in the pouring rain. Before he could stop her, Cora swung onto another mount. "You'll never turn them alone," she shouted over the wind. "Stay here," he barked, but she was already riding hard into the storm. Clara stood at the porch, hands clasped, her face pale with fear. She wanted to help, but her place was at the hearth, waiting, praying. Luke and Cora rode like wildfire, cutting the herd off from the riverbed where they could drown. Lightning split the sky, hooves pounded mud, and Cora's braid flew like a banner behind her. Together, they pushed the herd back toward the safety of the pen. When the gate slammed shut, Luke's chest heaved with relief. Cora laughed breathlessly, her cheeks flushed. "Admit it, you needed me." He stared at her, rain dripping from the brim of his hat. "You could have been killed." Her grin only widened. "But I wasn't." Something burned between them, fierce and undeniable. That night, Clara tended to Luke's cuts with gentle hands, her voice trembling. "You frighten me, Mr. Harding. Not for myself, but for how recklessly Cora lives. I fear she will break your peace." Luke looked into Clara's eyes, soft and steady. The woman he had asked for, the woman who had written him letters filled with hope. Yet when he closed his eyes, it wasn't her hymn he heard. It was Cora's wild laugh in the storm. He had to choose. The next morning, he gathered them both on the porch. The sky was clear, the air sharp with the smell of wet earth. "Miss Clara, Miss Cora." His voice was steady, but his heart thundered like hooves. "I sent for a bride because I wanted a partner. Someone who'd share this land, this life. Clara, your letters gave me hope. Cora, your spirit's shaken me in ways I can't deny. But I can't live split in two. I have to choose." Clara lowered her eyes, lips pressed tight. Cora's smile faltered for the first time. Luke took a breath. "Clara, you're the one I asked for. You are the one who promised to stand by me. And truth be told, I believe you're the one who can steady my life, make a true home here." Tears shimmered in Clara's eyes, but they were tears of relief. She reached for his hand, her fingers trembling. "Then I will be honored, Mr. Harding." "Truly." Cora swallowed hard, then forced a crooked smile. "Well, that settles it. I told you I wasn't the marrying kind. Guess I'll just have to carve my own path west." Luke caught her gaze, aching with what might have been. But he knew his choice was right. A rancher needed roots, not wildfire. And though he would never forget Cora's spark, it was Clara's steady flame that would warm his hearth. Weeks later, the church bell rang as Luke and Clara exchanged vows beneath the wide Wyoming sky. Cora stood at her sister's side, eyes bright with both pride and restlessness. When the service ended, she leaned close to Luke and whispered with a grin, "Take good care of her, Cowboy. And don't you ever forget, you almost chose the wrong twin." Luke chuckled, slipping his arm around Clara. "No, Cora, I chose the right one. But I reckon I'll always owe you for keeping me honest." The sisters laughed together, and for the first time in years, Luke felt not just like a rancher with land and cattle, but like a man with family, laughter, and love. The plain stretched endless before them, filled with storms and sunlight alike, but now he would not face them alone.